Welcome to Sonata Secrets. I'm Henrik Kilhamn, and in this episode I will talk about the first movement of Scriabin's second piano sonata, the Sonata-Fantasy. So, Alexander Scriabin wrote 10 piano sonatas, and this is probably the most performed, together with the fourth. And the reason for the fantasy part of the title is that it's slightly freer than a proper sonata, even if it has a sonata form as a foundation. Especially the second subject group feels very free and improvisational, and Scriabin himself actually provided a short programmatic conception of the piece. The first part evokes the calm of a night by the seashore in the south. In the development we hear the somber agitation of the depth. The section in E major represents the tender moonlight which comes after the first dark of the night. And when you think about the whole sonata with the two movements, it actually has some similarities with Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. They both have a slow first movement with this somber atmosphere, and also a fast last movement with a lot of note that just keeps on coming. And a special thank you and shout out to my Patreon sponsor John Neerman for this episode. So there are basically two sides to this music. One is a firm and a hard statement, kind of a gripping character that's present for the first part and also in the middle a lot. And then the other side is the complete opposite of that, a soft and very free, kind of floating, improvisational melody. And these two sides say completely opposite things, but they're both so cool in the way they say them. So if we look at the large-scale structure already, we can see that these two sides are both present in the piece at different times. Okay, so in the beginning we start with this firm motif. So it's actually two things. The left hand has this rising fifth. This is a typical Scriabin thing. He has it in a lot of his music. Ba-bam, ba-bam in the bass. And then the right hand plays kind of the opposite, the falling fifth. So this like inverted fanfare thing with the triplets. It's ritardando on the triplets, and the harmony here. This is a minor 6 chord. It's a great chord. It's like a mystical and a bit melancholic, but also promising at the same time. And it's halted, and then we try again. So the same motif, but a different harmony. This is like a D-sharp dominant chord feeling. So harmonically, we're in G-sharp minor, but it doesn't really feel like that with the first chord, because it's a minor 6 chord. So already we're in Scriabin space of this kind of unclear tonality. But here we get a dominant feeling, at least. But it's halted again. And now for the third statement, we get some of this marching that's going to come later in the piece. We see a hint of it here. The signal again, and it's another minor 6 chord. And then a fourth time with the marching. It's growing. And we finally manage to get out of these pauses and get some momentum. And here the left hand has something to say. These intervals going up and down. And also we got this amazing Italian 6 chord. So it really grows here. And I play slightly more than the mezzo forte because I think this whole line warrants it. And it's like Scriabin can't hold it in. Already this early in the piece, the passion needs to get out because it grows, big register. But then we're back to the opening statements again. But now it's transposed to D sharp minor 6. So kind of a modulating harmony here. And this is a dominant feeling. And now this is like the whole first subject group in the structure. That's short. Because now we get a completely new character. And it's this other side that I was talking about, this soft, free-floating, improvisational character. But this is the signal, though. Now it's an octave, but it's still the triplet. So it's the material from the first subject, but in this new character that is something different. And just what makes it different? Well, it's pianissimo, so soft, and then the left hand plays arpeggios, but they're tied over the bar lines, so it's not on the beat, so it's... So he kind of suspends the beats, and also with the right hand, it's not clear rhythmically because it's like a big triplet. And on syncopation, so it's like where are we rhythmically? Not very clear. Minor. But it's turning to major with this dominant 7th chord. Lovely E major when it comes, but then turning back to minor, or like a E minor over a C sharp, so it's kind of a half diminished Scriabin mystical chord. Let me just play it again from here. So here we get this kind of a stable chord. This is a B major with an F sharp in the bass, so it's like a dominant 6/4 chord. We're kind of expecting B major. That's the tonic B major here. And this chord, typical Scriabin also, it's a F sharp, kind of a F sharp dominant. 7 and a 6. 7 and a 6. And then going through the -5. And the -5 is not part of the tonality, the scale notes. And I talk a lot about this in another Scriabin piece, his Nocturne in F sharp minor, opus 5 number 1. You can check it out in that episode. So after this, again, and here almost get to B major. This is a B major sus4, so we expect that would be a resolution to resolve the sus4 to a B major, but Scriabin resolves it another way, so we don't get it. So this is so amazing. He treats it as E sus2 instead. So it could also be this same chord could be. So now when you've heard the E major, you hear it as a sus2. So this is the sus2 or the 9th to E. But when we come to it, we're kind of expecting the B major. It's so amazing, this music, and I'm not going to talk so much in detail now for this section. I'm just going to play it, but listen for how this character, just the melody line just develops and unfolds as you would kind of improvise it, and it's really breathing, like in and out and up and down. And then the left hand just plays these supporting notes, 1 or 2 notes, or sometimes a chord. And it's also very precisely notated rhythmically, like triplets and eighth notes, and later on you get some quintuplets. And it's kind of a good exercise because you need to play them different with the hands, 3 against 2 and other rhythms. And also just wait until the end of this piece with rhythms at the same time. But at the same time, he writes rubato in the music. So rubato is like stretching time. So we have a lot of freedom as performers when we do this. It's supposed to be this improvisational, because he writes rubato at like 2 times in the music in this section. This is like one of the most beautiful ways of piano writing that Scriabin manages here. It's perfectly balanced with a melody in this register and just the supporting notes. Here we get a little bit of a pause, and then we get a slightly more firm statement, espressivo. And it's like a dialogue with an octave up here and 1 octave down, imitating the same melody. Again. Here it starts to grow now, the intensity. And what follows here is one of the other most beautiful ways of writing for the piano, because here it gets really messy with in the score. So it's another way. Now it's not so sparse as before. Now it's a lot of notes, like chord notes that are sprinkled as glitter. It's really sparkling, this place, what comes here. So we have the melody like in the middle, and the left hand plays bass and some arpeggio and accompaniment. So the melody is this. It's in the middle of all the notes. So with everything else, you can hear the melody, or I need to play the melody really strong, and then all the other glitter around it. Now the melody comes 1 octave lower, so played with the left hand mostly. And now we're kind of falling back to a nice tonality, B major. And the melody just repeats like the last bit of it several times. So, and then closing on that lovely B major. So. The super low B, really nice. Now this isn't a typical sonata form, because the first subject group is quite short, and then the second subject group is spread out over this long improvisational section. But what starts here feels like a typical development actually. So now we get the signal from the beginning, makes a reappearance here. but it's in major, nice, because we finished in B major. And then it's kind of decorated with the second character, this improvisational with the left hand. Then going for the mediant D major. It's always a nice chord. And now starts some growing, building up, and we get the signal in the left hand in the deep registers, and we get like a marching starting to come here. And also the melody plays some statements that are kind of imitating, so it's the same melody, but it's spread out on a big register, so it's hard to hear it as a melody, but it's there as kind of a signal. Left hand. And here we get a really clear juxtaposition of the two characters. So it grows into this really loud, fortissimo, angry statement. And then this soft character comes like a music box, and it's so lovely to play these really big contrasts of these sections. But the strong character kind of wins. And here we get the proper marching. And it's building from loud to even louder. Until we get to an oscillation between a dominant and a lovely French sixth chord and German sixth chord. Now we get the signal in its loudest instance in the piece. The two times. And here again it deviates from normal sonata form, because if it was a sonata, a proper sonata, we would expect a recapitulation here after the development. And then the recapitulation is the first subject group for like a full repetition of it. But we only get these two signals. As like the climax of the development, but actually the signals has been there for this marching underneath, and then after this we go straight to the other side, the B section with the improvisational character. So it's like the development and the recapitulation is merging together in a bit, but it doesn't really matter. We just enjoy moving on to this lovely. But it comes as a really surprise here after the big outburst. And like a long pause, and then pianissimo. So this section comes like exactly the same, a repetition of it, but it's now in E major instead. And there's just some cosmetic changes in the like accompaniment. It's slightly more busy, more energy underneath to give it something of a new, fresh character. So like when we get here. Now Now the left hand has some sprinkles here. And here it's more busy in a way underneath here. You remember in the first part it was mostly supporting notes, now it's more moving. Oh, this is so lovely, this kind of a quirky thing here. And now start the building. Some extra hand crossing to make it sensual in a way. It really feels that way when you play it. Ready for the glitter. And then when we get to the end, we get these falling scales. Now they have grown, so we have 9 notes in the right hand over 5 notes in the left hand. This is some really hard polyrhythmic exercises going on here. And 12 over 5. But paradoxically, we're calming down, cooling down, and we're savoring this E major, and it feels really nice and secure, as long as you can get to play all these notes super soft and just let them, fly in the wind above the melody. And then guess what comes back right at the end of the piece? It's the signal again, of course. But in a major sixth. This is such a great movement. And I think you can really see how the moonlight touches the surface of the sea in like small waves that Scriabin was telling about as a conception of the piece. And also I think it works on its own. You don't have to play the second movement. It works as a sonata, of course, the 2 movements, but I played it in performances, just 1 movement many times. Now please join me for the ride. That is the first movement of Scriabin's second sonata, opus 19 in G sharp minor.